Hello and welcome to Women for the Culture. I'm going to add on our guest. And as I do that, I want to encourage everyone to please share this event with your friends and your followers. We can take a second and do that on Facebook. Please make sure that any other devices that you're not directly speaking on are all muted, especially when you're sharing. If you view the room in Facebook, Women for the Culture, if you click the share button, you'll see an option to post a watch party. That's the best option for your followers to join and contribute and watch and engage with the conversation. So make sure whoever may have that device playing in the background, we need that down. The volume needs to be down, and we're definitely live. So I'm going to get started. All of those who are watching, I want to thank you all for tuning in. My name is Camille Davis. I am the host, and I am one of the lovely ladies that have the pleasure of running Women for the Culture. So I thought that it was really important for us to have this conversation. It's the holidays, a lot of us are battling. And I made a post today on Women for the Culture that we're all sisters. We're all battling, we're all have endured in some type of way, whether it's a family member who's experienced something, whether it's grief, loss, trauma, divorce, whether it's personal experiences of our own. I think that this is a way that we can all come together in a safe space and to show that we have those commonalities. And this is a great way for us to heal if we see that our sister has gone through the same similar situations. So
Yes.
I want to start off by thanking our guests tonight. And if you guys can take a second, we'll start off with Kinyatta, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Kinyatta Gray, and I'd like to thank Women for the Culture for inviting me on this panel with these other esteemed guests. I'm very excited to be able to share some of my experiences with you. So I am an author, times 5 books, and I am also the owner of a business called Flights and Stilettos. And over the last 2 years, I have been speaking to different audiences about my personal experiences with grief and loss after unexpectedly losing my mom in 2018, as well as some issues that I've experienced with domestic violence several years ago. So I am very happy to be here, and thank you so much, Camille.
Excuse me. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Kenyatta. Anim, can you give us a little bit of information on your background, who you are, and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anim Awe. I'm a licensed clinical mental health therapist. I'm also a clinical health educator. I've dedicated my career to working with Black women around issues like trauma, depression, anxiety, and also helping women understand how trauma impacts us, not only just through a mental state, but also physically. And so really being intentional about creating a space where we can undo a lot of that sort of trauma, that intergenerational trauma that gets passed down, doing that work, and also doing the work to heal, our current, the current client that I'm working with, or groups that I'm working with around the trauma that they come in with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding to our conversation this evening. Nijama, am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Najma. Close,
Najma, I'm
very
so
close.
sorry.
Najma,
We
yes.
have been talking and friends, virtually at a distance. So it's such a pleasure to connect with you. Can you please let us know your background and what it is that you do as well?
Sure, sure. Good evening, Queens. I'm so honored to be here to share with your audience and with all of these lovely women about such a very important topic. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm also an author of The Black Girl's Guide to Healing Emotional Wounds. And I work with women from ages 18 to 60 on peeling back the layers, looking at our trauma, looking at our past hurts to see how those hurts are impacting us today and making a wellness plan towards healing. So as I said earlier, I really believe this topic is important, particularly during this time of year, because as you said, Camille, we're sisters and many of us are struggling. You see the smile, but you don't know what's behind the smile. So I'm just delighted to have this conversation with you guys.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys. I want to start with any type of disclaimers because I always want, my speakers to feel extremely comfortable in sharing their stories. And also for those listening, that any advice or any tools or resources that we share tonight, these are from our personal experiences. And, although we have experts on this panel, we do recommend that you seek specific medical, attention and advice. Do you guys have anything to add from that? Because I want to make sure that that's very clear before we start our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to use that disclaimer that this is not intended to replace professional help. And
exactly.
So mindful of that. And if anyone's in a dire situation and they feel like they're either going to hurt themselves, other people, that you report to the ER or call 911 as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
I agree. And I am definitely sharing information based on my personal experience. And I'm just sharing with you some things that have helped me along the way. But again, as the professional just said, you definitely want to seek professional advice.
Thank you all for that. I also want to mention before we get started that we preempted people for questioning. So I've kind of incorporated that into our conversation tonight because we want to protect the privacy of the people who have submitted questions. So we won't post any live questions, but if I do see some in the audience that are, pertinent, I will bring them up. So I just wanted to let you guys all know that we have taken your comments and your questions into consideration. And also, if anything may ever seem like a duplicate or we may have revisited that before, I just want to note that that's only because I'm trying to make sure that we address as many of the follower questions as possible.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So thank you all. So with all that being said, I feel that it's only right that I kind of share my personal story, right? If I want us to really kind of get to it, I feel like we gotta go through it. So personally, and who knows, we might even uncover more trauma that I've even experienced and not even known about. But of course, this session is not for me. I want to just have our sisters feel that sharing is okay, that this is safe and this is needed. It's so necessary. And who knows with these like-minded women, what they've been through and what they can pour into me and what type of advice can help me grow and get through. So I just wanted to start with that. Basically, I wanted to create this because I noticed that I'm always kind of going through the motions every day. I'm pouring myself into my business, but I'm not really doing the daily steps. I don't even know what the daily steps are to kind of manage grief and loss in my life specifically. So in the past 3 years after having my son, I lost 3 important people to me. So that would be my paternal grandmother, my mother immediately after, and then my father immediately after that. So, I went through what they would say, these 3 major events in my life. After having the birth of my son, I was in the middle of moving and then a death, right? And followed by 2 more deaths. So even me talking about it, I spoke with Kinyatta offline. It seems that maybe this is my healing. Just even the fact that I'm sharing my story. I don't know what healing looks like, and I know that every day is going to be a journey. Every single day is difficult to get out of the bed. People don't see what someone is dealing with, on the other side, and maybe how difficult it is getting out of the bed. So I thought, it's the holidays. I can't imagine how someone maybe like me who's just lost their mother, maybe, feeling during this time. How do we help those people? So I really want us to tap in and give our all. I don't know what may come of this, but I'm hoping that we can provide some type of virtual hug, in a sense, or virtual comfort, to the people who are out there watching. So I do want to start. I sent you all a quote from the Harvard School of Health, and I want to kind of start before we even go into past stress and trauma. I wanted to start here that Living through violence and trauma can result in anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and can also increase the risk of conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, or dementia. Let's start by discussing the different types of trauma and how some people may be dealing with past trauma in their current lives and not even know it.
Yeah.
So, does anyone in particular want to kick this off for us?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So like that whole thing is essentially what I built my practice on. So I think it's kind of like twofold, right? You have, let's say you have a young mom who's like in the inner city and is exposed to all this trauma. She's pregnant. And so, believe it or not, in utero, that baby will feel the side effects of that stress that she's under because of that toxic environment that she's under. So then it all literally starts from inception there. So then you have a mom who, like, unfortunately, because of these circumstances, is in this environment. And then you have the child who then grows up also in this environment and is also exposed to these, whether it's like violence in the home, violence in the community, whether it's like literally a toxic environment. And, you know, there's a part of Richmond, California, where they're exposed to like toxicity because there's like gas, oil, refineries up there. So then you think about those type of things. And so you already have the odds sort of stacked against you. And then when you think about the health outcomes that are related to that, right? That, you know, when we go back to the pregnancy being in utero, mom is more likely to have a sort of high risk pregnancy, maybe delivering a low birth weight baby, which then adds to the increased probability of anxiety, depression, heart disease, which is the number one killer for most people, diabetes. So it literally is like a ripple effect. And unfortunately, there are things that we can't necessarily control for. Like we can't all change, you know, everybody's socioeconomic status, but there are things like when we get you sort of awareness into this, that there are changes that we can make in terms of like behavioral changes. So when we get awareness around, you know, maybe some of the trauma around the household was that, you know, especially with you know, in our families, because we're trained not to talk about things, you know, we keep everything in the house, you know, maybe there's like a molestation situation or something like that. And I'm just kind of pulling this out the bag. But, you know, rather than keeping that in secrecy and continue to pass that sort of intergenerational trauma, having conversations about that, breaking the cycle, stepping up and kind of having a conversation about how that's impacted you or, you know, mom or whomever it is. And so really just, you know, we have to gain awareness into that in order to break that cycle.
And let me add to what you just said here, especially on the topic of intergenerational trauma. Let's be frank for a minute here, right? As Black women, as Black Americans, our very first experiences here in this country were traumatic, right? We were brought here as slaves, we were disenfranchised, we were rejected, and so our ancestors didn't have a lot of time to deal with that trauma, right? So because they had to focus on surviving and trying to make sure that they provided and protected for us. And I'm talking about even our parents, okay? Even our parents. I know for a fact my mom didn't have a lot of time to focus. I never saw my mom as a kid go to therapy and do self-care or what and all of those things that we're talking about now, okay? So I think that when you talk about how we don't talk about these types of things, I think because it's part of our past. It's just a way that the things that we had to do in order to survive. So I think having platforms like this, where we get a chance to talk about it, and Camille, I want to commend you for starting us off with sharing about some of the things you experienced, because it lets people know that it's okay. I firmly believe that that's one way that we heal, is by giving it language. When we talk about it, we desensitize the pain. So I just wanted to share that with you all as well.
Absolutely. And then to just kind of close the loop on it, you know, to kind of get back to the actual question of what is trauma for someone that might be listening in on this session tonight, and they're just going through some things and they don't know really how to classify it. So when you think of trauma, you think of things such as physical abuse. Rape is trauma, sexual abuse, neglect, witnessing domestic violence in your home, And for me, it was certainly the sudden and unexpected loss of my mom. And so some of the ways that people may be handling those things because they're dealing with trauma, you know, they may have an inability to really connect with other people in healthy relationships. You may see a lack of trust. There may be some misdirected anger, and certainly living with a lot of resentment. And so I think that those are some of the different kinds of trauma and how people live with it, and they may not even know that they're living with trauma.
That's a good point, Kenyatta. And to add to that, you know, in terms of what trauma is, it can even be something as a car accident,
That's
right?
right.
You know, whatever our brain determines is trauma.
Yes.
I was watching Tracy Morgan today talk about, you know, the car accident he had with the
Yes.
Walmart truck. And
Yes.
it's obvious that he's endured a lot of trauma and he's still healing.
Yes.
Even though that situation has happened some time ago, he is still in the process of healing. So
Yes. It's so true.
I think
Wow.
another point that I would add to that is this, that we all are exposed to different sort of stressors, and I think essentially that's what trauma is at the root. However, we all have different protective factors. We all have resiliency factors that we are
Yes.
built with for various reasons. You know, our environment, the families we come up with. So everyone won't respond to the same sort of exposure of trauma the same way. For some person, it could be the car accident that was a traumatic event. For one event, it could be the abusive relationship. Everyone sort of has different resiliency factors, which is a good thing innately. And also could, for me personally, I feel like, you know, too much resiliency is also problematic, but that's a personal
Mm.
opinion.
Wow.
I can't wait to really get into all of that, break down these traumas. How do we spot,
Mhm.
resentment? I definitely want to go into all of that further. So thank you guys for all sharing. I do want to mention that if you guys see me like looking right here, I apologize. I really hate being rude and looking off to the side, but I'm monitoring our audience comments and also making sure that I'm keeping time and staying, on topic. So please excuse me. I'm definitely listening and paying attention.
That's okay.
Thank you. So I want to add on another layer, COVID-19.
Yes.
COVID-19 can cause both physical and mental effects. Those who have either contracted the disease, lost a loved one to the disease, lost a job, worried about being evicted, or even just the stress of complying with stay at home orders. Would you say that we've all in some way been affected by this pandemic? And
Absolutely.
let me add to that. Would you say that those who have experienced prior traumas have it harder because of the pandemic?
Absolutely. I definitely have been affected by the COVID-19 because my entire way of thinking that, wow, I was safe, I'm going through life and, things are going to be great has now totally changed, right? I can't do any of the things that I used to do and feel safe and protected. Now, every day I'm worried about catching this disease and possibly dying. And not only me, people that I love, people that I work with. And so I do believe that people that have dealt with past traumas, that have not been actually addressed and dealt with, it's almost like when you go through something and you go through something traumatic, it chips away at you, right? And when you're not able to heal and get the type of treatment and help that you need, you're not able to withstand the different things that are being thrown at you. You're not strong enough to withstand it. And so I can imagine that someone that's dealing with some past traumas, and yet again, this thing has dropped into their plate, into their lap. It's extremely hard to navigate and know what to do, who to trust, what's going to happen next if you don't have the proper tools, if you don't have the proper support and resources to know how to think through this thing and understand how to seek the appropriate help so that you can manage and rationalize and get through this.
And I think the pandemic has also hit our children
Yes.
very, very hard. I was talking with a close friend this week, and she was saying her son is suicidal Because it's hard maneuvering. He in this new virtual world. He started a new school this year, and it's hard to make friends virtually. And his best friend moved away, so it's been a struggle. It's been a total nightmare for him. So yes, I agree. This is traumatic. This is definitely a traumatic experience, especially earlier on when we didn't have any end in sight.
Right.
Now there's talk about a vaccine, which kind of lightens the load a little bit. But, at one point it was just kind of like, is this life? Is this just our new way of life? So that was kind of hard for all of us to kind of wrap our minds around as well. With that, for me, I'm a huge believer in therapy. So at the start of the school year, I put my daughter in therapy. She's in the 3rd grade. But, I knew this was going to be adjustment for her. And also the message I wanted to send to her was, it's okay to have therapy. I didn't grow up feeling, that therapy was okay. Now I'm very comfortable because the stigma has been removed to some degree within our community. But I want her to understand very early on, just as you go to see a doctor for your annual exams and so on, you need to go see a therapist as well. Whether anything is wrong or not, make sure that you have a therapist on deck. So, yeah.
I mean, I agree with all the ladies. It's been extremely traumatic, especially for like essential workers, frontline workers. I mean, my mom is a nurse. She's been a nurse for 23 years. So every day she's going to work in panic, not only for, for her possibly contracting the virus, but also to come home to her family and also give it off to her family. So that's her fear every single day. Imagine carrying that burden every single day and, losing sleep. So there are levels of anxiety, even for myself. I still have to report into the office because, I work in a medical setting. And so every day it's just that level of anxiety of just like, am I going to catch it today? Or is it's today going to be the day? Or even for people who are losing out on, who do get the virus and then they have to stay out of work for 2 weeks. Everybody doesn't have benefits where they stay out of work and, they get paid their time off. So that's an added layer of stress. So it's like bills adding up, you lose your job or you lose your house. It's kind of another ripple effect where it's just like, you can sort of get the rug pulled off from underneath you. And it's just like, it just gets worse after worse after worse. So it's really been a definitely trying and traumatic time for a lot of us, not just us in the United States, it's just been globally. And that's the difference, right? Global pandemic. So it's been an interesting time. We've never seen anything like this. So it's kind of, it's an interesting sort of space to navigate.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, Harvard School of Health says millennials may be facing the most COVID-19 related stress right now. For instance, parents juggling childcare while trying to get their own work done, while older adults or boomers may be handling the disruption better, in part because they've experienced more in life and they know that bad times will eventually pass. Teens, Gen Z, they may be able to adapt more readily to COVID-19 changes such as online school because they're more used to virtual environments. What are your thoughts on this and your advice for each of these groups?
Wow, this is an interesting question. And so what I will say is it's interesting because technically I fall in the millennial category, right? But I actually have children that are adults. And so it's very interesting watching how they are navigating in this new normal. And what I try to tell them is to try to remain as normal as you can in this new normal, right? And I know that with all of the restrictions and the things that you can't do, I need them to adhere to those practices and those protocols because that's what's ultimately going to keep them safe. But I want them to still find a way to stay connected with the relationships and the people that they had pre-COVID, because I think that there's something to be said when people start to lose their human connections with family, with friends. I think that makes them feel even more isolated. And I would also, suggest to them to just really try to stay spiritually grounded. You have to, find some type of source outside of yourself that you can turn to and say, hey, I need to pray, I need to think, I need to meditate, and, I need to make sure that I am grounded so that I know that there is going to be a silver lining at the end of this. And so for me, it's just all about trying to keep and find a way to be normal in this new normal and stay connected with your loved ones and your friends in spite of these restrictions that we have.
I love that answer, Kinyatta. Yes, I completely agree with you 100% on everything that you just said. And I'm a big believer in community, right? And so for my children, I made sure that they maintain a community, even if it's virtual for the most part. We also have a bubble that has been working well. We have a few people that we get together with. You know, we remain in our bubble. Everybody, you know, we're always together and so on. And that has really helped, because when you kind of cut yourself off from the world, you know, that's when it gets really tough. So I'm a firm believer in definitely in making sure that your community, you keep them centered around you, and that community remains tight. And then for me also, and especially, you know, for the older generation and so on, you know, I would encourage them to get as familiar as they can with technology. And you know, I hosted our family reunion. It was virtual last night. It was just a meet and greet, but I was just so surprised that my 80-year-old uncle, my 95-year-old uncle, they were all there. They were all talking. They weren't afraid of Zoom. We had a great time. All generations were there. Even, I mean, it was from the 15-year-old niece to my 90-year-old uncle. We were all there. It was probably one of the best moments of 2020 for me. So yeah, I agree with that. Maintain your community and get comfortable with technology. And for the younger ones, don't be afraid. You know, listen, I hate being my mom's tech support. But we got to do it, right?
It's so true.
So we've got to help our older folks out and help them to understand how to maneuver this new virtual world, because honestly, it's not going anywhere.
It's not.
Zoom isn't going anywhere. Even with the vaccine, y'all, we're still going to be wearing masks, and we're still going to be operating in this virtual environment for a while. So
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to everything they mentioned is just like routine, establishing some sort of routine. But whether you're young or old, I think one of the biggest struggles is like routines. Like people are used to getting up, going to work, taking the train, et cetera, et cetera. So like establishing a new routine for themselves. And so I think that's just universal, whether you're young or old, and whether that means, you know, incorporating exercise in your home or going for a walk with a mask, you know, following precautions depending on what city you're in, but making that a priority for you and being intentional about routine for yourself each day.
Yes.
Absolutely. And as you guys have mentioned, you know, we have this new administration coming, a potential, you know, shutdown looming. The numbers, unfortunately, are rising again. How, in your opinion, can further distancing affect one's mental health at this time?
When you say further distancing, like, do you mean like prolonging the fact that we're like social distancing?
Yeah, and maybe the hope that they're, you know, the outcome isn't as close as we thought, you know, the going back under, you know, we just got a notice here in DC that we're actually going back a phase starting, was it the 15th? Maybe it started to start the 23rd, maybe through January the 15th, I believe, where indoor dining is going to be eliminated. They're still saying that delivery is going to be available, takeout is going to be available, but the mayor announced that we're going back in shutdown mode. And I believe that when the new administration comes in, it's going to be a complete shutdown. So, you know, that false hope, you know, of opening back up again, thinking that, you know, we were right there around the corner, you know, but there's also hope that, hey, this can be cleaned up as well. So can you kind of take us through people who may be battling, that we're looking forward to those friends, that we're looking forward to outside opening back up, as we say?
You know, I think that the summertime, right, it gave us a little taste of freedom because we could go to restaurants and dine outside, and you could go take walks and walk around the neighborhood. You had more options to do things. And I know definitely for me, and I'm not far from you, Camille. I'm in Northern Virginia, and I'm keeping track of, because I have friends in Maryland, DC, and in Virginia. So I'm trying to keep track of it all. And it's definitely hard to accept that here we are. It's already getting cold. We may have another shutdown, and you do see different states, going back to the different phases. Here in Virginia, they just posed some restrictions and so on. So I do think that does affect your mental and emotional health, to know that you don't have the options that you had this summer. So to know that we are facing another situation like the one we had last year or earlier this year. That is definitely something that is affecting many of our mental health situations, because it's real. And like you said, I definitely think with the new administration, it's very real that that's going to happen. And then you also have to think about businesses and so forth. How, our small business owners, how are they going to be impacted if this happens again? My husband and I, for example, we own rental property, and one of our renters, their business is flooring, and they had to shut down during the last shutdown. So that, what impact, it was a trickle down effect. It impacted them, it impacts us. So that's always in the back of my mind. How is everything, how are we going to be able to move forward? How is this going to affect us, financially? And we all know that financial worries are real, So yeah, I definitely think it impacts our mental health.
Yeah. And Camille, I'd like to say that prior to COVID, I used to maybe telework once a week, right? And so now and back when I was teleworking once a week, I just could imagine how wonderful it would be to telework 5 days a week. Now I cannot believe how miserable I am. I am thankful that I have a job. I am thankful for income. I can't believe how miserable I am home by myself all day, talking to a computer all day. And so, I learned a big lesson. And because I realized that I took it for granted, going to Starbucks with my coworker, having lunch with my coworkers at different places and different food courts, and obviously adding to the economy by supporting and buying lunch and stuff. And so one of the things that I think that moving forward, if this is going to continue, is say, hey, maybe one day I can, safely go to one of my colleagues' house and we can telework together from the same location, because I really think I am going to go stir crazy if I have to continue to be in the house alone by myself. And I'm gonna tell you, God works in mysterious ways, because shortly before we went into complete lockdown and we went in, where we had to telework full time, I had bought a puppy, not knowing that any of this was going to come. And that puppy has saved my life because it keeps me company during the day. So, just trying to find like safe ways to still try to connect with some people, and going back to that whole thing with trying to create some normalcy in the new norm safely.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm in Atlanta. They're completely reckless down here. There's like no regulations. There's no nothing. It's crazy because I'm from Boston and I was in California before this, and to come down here is just like nomad's land. But anyways, in terms of mental health, I think it's okay to grieve that loss. I think when we think about grief, we only think about death. This is a loss.
Great
this
point.
is
Yes.
People are adjusting. People are trying to kind of make sense and kind of gather their mind around everything that's going on. It's okay. Feel that, go through that. But also, Kenyatta mentioned that there are safe ways to adjust to this new normal, right? Whether it's safely creating your own bubbles where it's you and your friend agreeing to work together, or she's staying with you, he's staying with you, whatever the situation is, in a safe manner, then, why not? And also taking advantage of what we mentioned kind of earlier, the being intentional about, if you really want to see your friends, create those Zoom parties.
Right.
It doesn't replace that sort of in-person interaction, but it is an opportunity to still have that connection. Be intentional about making those phone calls or following up with those texts. Don't overwhelm yourself, of course, because I'm sure you're doing it. But there's a level of intentionality that we have to take. Unfortunately, there's an extra step that we have to take these days. And so if these things are important to you, it's important to
Yes.
nourish those relationships, because they, for a lot of us, they fulfill us in certain ways. So for me, it's important to talk to mom and dad at least 2 times a week. I'm not there with them, but, I need to do that for myself to get through the week. That's what I need. Or, seeing my friends, interacting, making sure that I reach out to them, see if how they're doing. So there's a level of intentionality, I think. And I think it's okay to sort of breathe and feel what you're feeling, feel through that. If you feel like it's at a level that you may need extra support, then definitely, again, reach out to, a professional or your PCP to, navigate that.
Yes.
I
really
that.
love
Breathe
all of
it.
this.
Yes.
Yes, and that's really even wanting me to bring in more people into the conversation when you're talking about what loss looks like, right? What about those who, are separate from their children for the first time? Those who have just, went through a divorce and they were looking forward to, getting their group back, right? So what does loneliness look like in this time in terms of mental health?
I think loneliness, believe it or not, I think it's normal to feel that. I think what we want to be mindful of, again, is that, is that loneliness starting to trigger other things for you? Is that sort of normal range becoming somewhere? Are you sort of behaviors becoming unrecognizable for you? Are you having persistent ruminating thoughts about certain things that might be disturbing for you? I think the nature of everything that's going on, it's normal. It's an experience that I'm expecting for you to feel. But however, is it becoming to an extent where it's becoming dangerous for you? Is it becoming you don't have people, social, having sort of a social network, in that, people that you can turn to or talk to when you're feeling lonely or down or sad is so important. It's so crucial. And I think COVID has proven that. A lot of people can't sit with themselves, unfortunately.
It's true.
And so I think having a social support is very important, but also just being mindful, checking in with yourself, doing some self-inventory, kind of, these thoughts are coming up. Am I staying up at night now? Am I losing my appetite? Like, are those things those behavioral things start to change for me? Do I need to seek professional help? That's when I think it's getting to a point where it's starting to truly impact your mental health. I don't think loneliness in within itself is necessarily, a mental health issue.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Now, coupling them together, those prior traumas, and then this new added trauma of COVID, this new loss that we're all experiencing. In your experience, that added stress of Kenyatta, I'm sorry, Kenyatta, I want to go to you first about the grief and loss perspective, but people dealing with those prior traumas in your experience, how is COVID impacting them specifically?
Well, again, it goes back to, when you haven't been able to deal with past traumas and you have experienced past traumas, those traumas chip away at you. So you're not able to withstand new things, new traumas, new hurts, new pains that come your way if you haven't been able to seek therapy or the proper type of tools or care to heal you from the past trauma. So it's almost like, you're cutting away at a tree, right? And you're chipping at it. You've been through a divorce, you've been abused, right? These things are chipping away at you, right? Then this big monster comes out of nowhere, this pandemic, and it blows you away because you've already been weakened by everything else. And so that's kind of like what it means to, have someone that is dealing with trauma, and then you have other traumas that impact it and they're unable to withstand it.
Yes. I want to definitely go a little more into traumatic events such as divorce, excuse me,
Najma.
I'm tongue tied, excuse me, Najma. Your latest book that you've been putting out has really been addressing the divorce and those traumatic events. I can't imagine, we briefly mentioned PTSD, how maybe is COVID triggering that in some people and maybe they may not even know.
I think one thing that our professional just mentioned earlier was that, it's the thing about COVID is it's giving us a lot of quiet time. It's a lot of time to ourselves and a lot of time with our thoughts. So I think people are now sitting with their thoughts and trying to process things. And part of processing it is peeling back those layers and starting to re-examine what went wrong and what happened and the hurts and so forth and so on. And my hope is that all of this quiet time is leading us towards a path of healing, not just staying there, but saying, okay, you know what? I thought I was over this thing. I thought I was over the divorce. I thought I was over the pain, but it's still here. So let me go see a therapist. Let me go see a professional so that I can really address this. So, and I believe that is happening. I know people reach out to me for referrals and so forth and so on. But I believe that the quiet time is really causing us to think and dig deep. And it's opening up those wounds that we thought were healed. And it's forcing us to really deal with it. And it's okay because I believe it's going to lead us towards a path of healing.
True. And Camille, let me ask you something. I want to make sure did I answer your question in terms of grief and loss? Or did we not get to that yet? I want to make sure that I address that for you.
Yeah, I mean, especially I don't want to get too personal even with your story, but even taking into account, the loss of your mom, if you don't mind sharing with us, how has COVID added to that? What's been your experience maneuvering that?
Right. So I think either with or without COVID, it is something that I still actually deal with. But around the holidays, what I have learned over the last couple of years is that I really need to really focus on being present and being mindful and being grateful for the loved ones that I do still have in my life that depend on me to be there for them, right? And it's very important for me to, and I talk about this all the time, not abandoning my loved one's spirit. And so I actually wrote a blog on my blog. It's called Honoring Miss B, and I list 25 ways that you can honor your loved one's spirit. And so during this time of the year, I really do a lot of reflecting and thinking of the great times and even some of the not so great times that are absolutely hysterical to think about. And I always try to find ways to call my mom's spirit into the room. I think about how we can honor her, how we can talk about her at the Christmas dinner. Can we play her favorite tunes during Christmas? Can we continue to put her favorite ornaments on a Christmas tree? And I try to find those kind of ways to just bring her spirit into the room and just to make her still a part of the holiday season. No, she's not here. Yes, we know that she's not here, but her spirit still is. And I like to encourage people to honor that about their loved ones who are no longer with us.
I love that, Kinyatta. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
For me, in terms of grief, I lost a cousin who was just a few years older than I was. We grew up together like sisters. And in terms of grief, it hits me more when it's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
When my grandmother died, we knew, she had cancer, we had the diagnosis, and we had plenty of time to get prepared for it. But with my cousin, we didn't have that same amount of time. And on top of that, she left 2 young boys behind. So for me, to be honest, I'm always grieving. And I made peace with that.
Yes.
I'm never over it. I'm never going
Right.
to be that. This is
Right.
always going to be something that's with me. And I believe that's the case when you've lost someone that's very close to you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
just my opinion.
Yes.
So I believe you're always grieving, but it's how you manage it. It's just
Yes.
learning how to manage that grief. And
Yes.
you know, again, we're in COVID. We've had a lot of quiet times, and you know, when you're alone with those thoughts, that's when you're like, wow, you know, I wish she was here. And especially at the holidays. Last night, as I mentioned, we had our virtual family reunion meet and greet, and I was thinking, I wish she was there. And someone who lives a distance from us didn't know that she had passed, and they asked about her, and you know, it brought up the feelings again. But I'm you know, it's day by day. You get more comfortable with managing those feelings and so on. And for a while, I couldn't even talk about it. I was so hurt. I was just so crushed from the pain. I couldn't talk about it. And even, you know, with funerals, I honestly have a thing about funerals because I don't really believe they give us a chance to grieve, you know, in the way in which we have funerals, because you're so busy, you know, with all of these things. So I just kept going. I was just, you know, we had to do this, we had to create that.
Right.
So I never really had an opportunity to grieve the situation, and I couldn't talk about it. I was just paralyzed from the hurt and the pain. And so talking about it, it really, really helps me, just being able to talk about it. And, you know, that helps you to be able to manage the emotions that comes with it. You're always going to have the emotions there.
Yes.
I believe the grief is going to be with you. You just have to learn to make peace.
Yes.
For the grief.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with all the ladies. I mean, I've had my own personal afflictions with grief. My best friend was murdered about 7 years ago. I mean, and it still hits me today, you know. And for me, grief is just sort of, it's not a linear process. It's like literally this, you know, one day you're, you know, accepted that this person is gone, and the next day you're bargaining still, next day you're in denial. So it's literally like these stages, but it doesn't have to be linear. And I think it's a opportunity for us to sort of just honor that person that was with us and honor their life. And you know, like Kinyatta mentioned, like there are small things that you can do to make sure that you feel like that person is still with you. Or, you know, there are things that, you know, we do in certain cultures to sort of pay respects to that person and still honor their life. So, you know, I got a tattoo on my wrist from my best friend because her favorite color was orange. So, I mean, it's just little things that I do because I wanted to feel like she was still here with me. And, you know, and I do believe she's here with me. And so I think, you know, we have different ways of navigating it, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's our individual journeys, and so we do it what makes sense for us.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
I completely agree.
While we're on this specific topic, I want to start with Aneem, and I want us to go around. I want you guys to tell our audience if there are any specific resources or tools that they can pull from in this time, even if you're, you know, I know a couple of you have authored your own resources. So I do want to take this moment and give them some, you know, concrete tips that they can write down if they're specifically dealing with grief and loss. I love that you guys have given some great ways on how to honor, you know, people that you may have lost during this time. I think that's a really important step. But, you know, social media, for example, may be a trigger, you know, from people. So what are some things that maybe they cannot do? Maybe they need to take away the screen time and pick up a book. What would you guys suggest?
Yeah. So that's a good question, Camille. So one of the things that I try to practice doing every day is, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I actually love picking up these things called Finding Gratitude, these gratitude journals. Not only do you write in them, but there are just these beautiful messages to help you stay centered and to help you stay focused and inspired. So this is something that I actually take the time to do every night. I write in my gratitude journal. And to your point, Camille, there's also this book that I just picked up. It's called Life Unplugged, the Digital detox. And I try to do at least, I mean, because most of my business is on social media, but I try to take at least 2 days a week to completely unplug, because it becomes overwhelmed to see, oh, somebody got married, they had a baby, oh, they're mid-level marketing business and they're a millionaire now. Like, you sometimes you just need to disconnect. And so those are some of the kinds of things that I do to just try to help me to just stay focused and centered, and just, I practice mindfulness, being present and thinking about, I love to write. I love to write my intentions. I love to write about what I want to do. And so those are the kinds of tools and things that I use to just get by every day.
I love that, Kinyatta. I was going to say mindfulness. I learned mindfulness meditation this year. This has been my lifesaver, y'all. And
Yes.
as our professional mentioned earlier, it helps you to become comfortable with your own thoughts.
Yes.
And also being present, being in the moment. Because I don't know about y'all, but for me, I can be having a conversation and be thinking about, doing the laundry and Instacart, ordering my groceries and so on. My mind is all over the place. And it really helps me to be in the moment, especially with my kids, because my daughter is 8 and she's not going to be 8 forever.
Yes.
And so I want to make sure that I'm spending good quality time with her, that I'm hearing her when she talks, even if it's for the smallest things, because 8-year-olds, they come to you about every little thing. And, and I know I remember when I would go to my mom with those small things, and she, my mom was busy with work and all of those things. And there were times I didn't feel that she was paying attention. And so for me, that showed up as me feeling unseen. And so I don't want my daughter to have those feelings of feeling unseen. So mindfulness has really, really helped me, y'all. Mindfulness meditation.
It's true.
Look it up. I'm telling you, it's a lifesaver.
It's true.
We can't hear. Can you guys hear her?
No, I thought it was just me. I can't hear her.
Oh, you guys can't hear
I'm
me?
sorry. Now.
Okay. Now you're good.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that I agree with the ladies. Mindfulness, I'm a huge proponent of it, an advocate of it rather. And so just finding different ways to practice mindfulness, whether it's journaling, whether it's grounding, whether it's, disconnecting and going for a walk, whether it's just sitting down with somebody and just having a nice meal and just really being intentional about that meal, and just taking it in, and little things that we can do to just be present and be in the moment. Also, just staying connected to some spiritual source, especially during difficult times. It doesn't matter where you're at with that, whether it's Jesus, Allah, whoever, whatever that fuels you, connect to that. And also, again, I can't sort of repeat this enough, but having social support, whether that's friends, family, somebody to talk to, it doesn't always have to be a professional. Sometimes somebody to just listen to you, and having somebody that's accessible to you, whether it's via phone, a text, or FaceTime, or in person, having those people that that.
Did we lose her again?
Lose me? Lose me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes. So connecting to people, mindfulness, and connecting to your spiritual source.
Yeah.
And if I can do a shameless plug here, commercial for my own book, The Black Girl's Guide to Healing Emotional Wounds. It's on Barnes and Nobles. It's on Amazon. But there's a chapter in here where I share about the death of my cousin, and that writing that chapter was very therapeutic for me as well, because it's also how we perceive death as well, and oftentimes we perceive it as someone just going down some big black hole and we'll never see them again, and that's not the case. And like you all said, they're here with us. I talk to my cousins and so on. So definitely, if you can, pick up the book.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And I also want to circle back to what Kinyatta said when you were talking about, seeing people win on social media. I'm just gonna give a transparent moment. So when you're talking about even people getting married, I can see friends on Facebook posting their photos, and you want to celebrate and say congratulations, but I can't shake that feeling of, oh, when do I even want to get married? The fact that my parents aren't here, how do I trick my mind and not go through those dark holes? I find myself having to disconnect from Facebook. If someone puts up
Yes.
a picture where, happy birthday, mom, it's like,
Oh, Lord, yes. I know.
how do I
Yes.
not come off as a hater? Like, how do I explain to people watching what that feels like for me, and why I may not be able to find the words in that moment? Or let's say you just lost your dad.
Mm.
It's like, of all people, I can relate, but sometimes I just don't even have the strength to write a message, So how can we talk to some of those people and let them know, like, you're not hating, like, don't feel bad, if you don't have the strength to like that post?
Mm.
I would say, like, first off, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. What you're
Yeah.
feeling is
Right.
valid.
Yes.
Feeling
Yeah,
is
that's
valid.
true.
Nobody can discount that for you. And then secondly, I think, again, I keep circling back to this, but you have to have good people around you where you can have those conversations. And
Yeah.
disconnecting is okay. Facebook and social media in general can be really overwhelming. And it's not
Yeah.
just, I think we talked about, like, that's why we're here today, right? It's not just us alone feeling what we feel. Like,
Right.
like, a lot of us feel these similar feelings, and it's okay to sort of disconnect. So to sort of reiterate, like, you don't have to kind of explain that to anyone, and then you
It's true.
certainly valid in what you feel. Like, your experience is true for you, and that's all that matters. And third,
Yes.
taking that time off, there's nothing wrong with that. There's something about that that's triggering you. Have a conversation with yourself, journal it out, do some like cognitive behavioral therapy activities in that, you're connecting those cognitions to the behaviors, to the thoughts. Like, how are these interrelating? Like, why does this, automatically trigger this response for me? And whether you want to go into a therapeutic setting or not, that's up to you. But, like, there are small activities that you can do. And shameless plug, I have a cognitive behavioral therapy journal on my website. So it helps kind of break down for you sort of some of those automatic thoughts or automatic responses for ourselves. And thirdly, like, it's okay to disconnect. And, like, we're going to be exposed to different things and we're going to respond differently. It doesn't make you a bad person, a hater, or like a not a good person if you're not, like, in a celebratory mood every time you see something on your timeline.
Right. It's true. It's true. And Camille, because, we lost our moms around the same time, I definitely have experienced that when I see posts, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. And I know that I'm motherless at this time. And so, in those moments, I honestly am able to think about the time that I did have with my mom, and I have spent way more time with my mom than I ever will not, right? And so I actually am able to feel joy and love and happy that they have that time, those moments, their memories with their mom, because I have had those too, and it's their time. And one day it won't be, right? And I thank God that things happened in the natural order. My mom, has been here, and her time is over, and that hasn't happened in a lot of my friends' lives, but it will. And I can just be happy and joyous about what I did have with her, and I'm happy that they have that with her, their parents, their moms, their dads. And that is honestly the healthiest way for me to deal with that. But I can't say that I look at it and feel any kind of malice. Of course I miss my mom. Of course I wish I could be posting about my mom, but I already did. We had that, and our time has come. And so I have to enjoy these moments now with my daughter, and celebrate those moments with other people. Yeah.
And I think, ladies, you have to exercise some self-compassion.
Yes.
Camille, it's okay if you don't feel like liking the post. It's okay.
Yes.
You are a human being. And like Anim said, feel the feelings. It's
Yes.
okay. You just can't, like it or sell, or you're feeling sad on Mother's Day.
Mhm.
That's traumatic. To lose your mom is
Mhm.
very traumatic. So
Mhm.
don't feel bad or beat yourself up
Right.
for how you
Right.
feel. We're humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that hurt, that pain is going to express itself differently in all of us.
It's so
And
true.
so it's okay. Trust me, it's okay. Allow yourself to feel those feelings.
Absolutely.
To your point, just real quickly, Kinyatta, you mentioned that Mother's Day triggers you in some way because you lost your mom. For me, Mother's Day is one of those trigger holidays for me too, because I have my mom, but I'm not a mother. So all these feelings come up, I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough, I'm 30,
Wow.
I'm married, I don't have kids. So all these things sort of come up, and it's just so interesting how that one holiday or that one thing can impact us all in so many different ways.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's something, yeah. We're all triggered differently.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I have some guests asking for you guys to let us know where they can actually find the books. They're asking if I can link or list them. So as soon as we go offline, I'll make sure to put the links in the actual description for this chat. But can each of you go through and talk about your different products that you just mentioned? And Kinyatta, 30 Days, you didn't show us that book. So if you
Oh, sure.
guys, I guess, Anim, I don't know if you have a copy with you, but can you at least shout out the website where they can find each of your publications?
Absolutely. So you can go on my personal website, www.animalcsw.com, and I'll type that somewhere so that you guys can find that. But yeah, I have the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Journal. And also more recently, I've been working on a wellness kit because I know a lot of people are at home struggling, forgetting to take care of themselves. So I've developed a wellness kit. It's called the I Am Well, which is an affirmation to remind ourselves that we are okay in this journey, in this struggle, and we're together. And so it really is built off the 8 different dimensions of wellness. And so if you choose to subscribe each month, it's a curated box that's centered around the 8 dimensions. And so it encourages you to sort of take that initiative and taking care of yourselves in various ways using the 8 dimensions of wellness. So that's all on my website, again, www.animalcsw.com.
Wow, Adim, I am interested in that wellness box. I cannot
Yes.
wait to order it. And
Yes.
Camille, to your point, this is my very first book. It's called 30 Days. And this is the book that I wrote immediately, almost a year after losing my mom. And it goes through what I went through the 30 days before I knew that my mom was passing, what we did, what we experienced, what we talked about when I did not know that she was passing. And, I had to come to terms with, wow, there were some things that I was doing and that I was preparing, not knowing that she was passing away. And I was so glad that I had listened to my inner voice and did some of the things that we did together, not knowing it was our last time. And then the book talks about some of the steps that I took to continue to honor her legacy. And it's a raw book because I do talk about, suicide and how I just did not want to live after losing my mom, and how I began to change my thinking through therapy, through love, through support. And I'm here today to tell you that life is possible after such a traumatic loss.
Wow. And that's on your website, Kinyatta?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, it's on my website, kinyattagray.com, or Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, practically everywhere.
Perfect. I will share your books on my sites as well, ladies.
Thank you, and vice versa. Vice versa.
Yes, absolutely. Got to support each other.
Yes, absolutely. Share the love.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we're shameless plugging. So I have to say, go to womenfortheculture.com and I'll have a description of each of these women and their products there with links. So we got you covered all the way around. So I want to keep on these feelings. How do we know during the holiday if we're just in a funk or if there's something mental going on? I see that you guys are talking about shifting that mindset. But is it at the point where you can't shift that mindset that we identify that there might be something deeper going on?
Wow. So, for me, I think that the difference between somebody that's going through a funk versus something that is mental is if you're going through a funk, it may last for an hour or a couple of hours. And, maybe going for a walk, talking to a good friend, having a self-care moment will make you feel better, right? But if there's something a little deeper going on, it's going to last for a couple of days, and it's really going to start to impact your quality of life. Maybe you're not concentrating, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're not connecting with the people in your life the way that you used to. You're having some really strange thoughts, maybe suicidal ideation. When you experience those type of things, it's not just a funk. There's something going on that needs the help of a social worker like a NEEM or a professional person to take a look at what's going on.
I agree 1,000%. Intensity and duration are the two things that we look for, especially when we're doing our assessments. That's how we determine whether it's sort of just like a funk, sort of a situation you're just kind of getting past, or like, is this a true piece that could be like a clinical issue that you may need sort of, further support around.
Yeah, and I also want to add in there that, this is why it's so important for us to pay attention to our emotions, because then you'll be able to recognize sort of your patterns and your triggers. And, maybe it's, this holiday you may feel like this, and that holiday you may feel like that. And you'll be able to kind of see any patterns or trends that, that may trigger you, that you may start to notice and so forth. And you can start being more proactive with dealing with it and addressing it. So, for example, if you know that, the holidays, you notice a pattern of the holidays, you get into a thing and a mental thing. So you can start preparing yourself, start going to your therapist and start journaling and praying more in anticipation for that. So that you're armed and you're prepared for that holiday.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to also ask for the loved ones, maybe someone is watching this because their wife is going through something at this time. How do we spot some of those signs or physical effects that someone may be experiencing that's close to us? How do we know if they're struggling with their emotions, their feelings, their mental stability, or even their sobriety?
One thing I want to add, especially, for the men in our lives, right? I know my husband, we have definitely opposite personalities, right? He is the type of person that can compartmentalize. I'm not. I feel everything and I want to talk about it and I'm hurt and I go through the range of emotions. Whereas he's like, why are you upset about that? Why is this bothering you? So one thing is to listen, to really listen, because sometimes we will say, I'm hurt. I'm not having a good day. I'm not feeling good. So listen, and then even ask, how would you like for me to support you? My husband has learned to do that. Now he will say, how do you want me to support you in this? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to just give you some space? Do you want me to take the kids while you do a self-care day? What do you need me to do? So I think asking how that person wants to be supported is good, but also paying attention, if things are different with that person, paying attention to their changes, if they stop eating, if they start drinking more, particularly at night. I'll be upfront and honest with y'all and tell y'all that when my cousin died, I started drinking at night because I was trying to numb the pain.
Yes.
It would hit me at night. And so I would stay up late and I would just, drink, trying to kill it because I just couldn't deal with the feelings and so on. So just pay attention to the patterns and the trends and the changes that person has, and then do whatever you can to be a support. You don't have to be a fixer because some men like to jump in and fix it, but ask them how you can help them as well.
It's true. It's true.
Were you going to go, Kinyatta?
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I think you answered that perfectly, but
Yeah.
I want to add a perspective that we were talking about trauma. So I want to mention trauma informed care, right? And I think this is a new approach that a lot of medical settings are taking, and I think we can take it as individuals as well, especially when we're supporting a person who may be traumatized or may be dealing with trauma. So essentially what that means is that how we approach people, we don't want to assume that we know their story. We don't want to assume or approach a situation and judging them, because that's going to make them sort of back down and not necessarily want to open up and get help. We also want to make sure that that person feels safe. Assessing for safety is one of the biggest things. Like, is this person in danger of potentially hurting themselves? Are they in a safe space? Are they in a space where they feel they're comfortable enough to talk to you or turn to you and get support? And so I think when we keep those sort of principles in mind, and you're helping a potential loved one, that can help you approach the situation without not necessarily re-traumatizing that person or re-traumatizing that person. So I think well, I think she answered that perfectly. I just want to add that perspective that, in terms of trauma-informed care, I think it's something that we all can incorporate into our daily lives, and especially with supporting loved ones who may have like a, long trauma or extensive trauma history.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I agree with both. Yeah.
Now, we kind of listed journaling, the mindfulness. I want to make sure that we close out with some healthy alternatives or practice that we can all do or consume to get our mental health, our emotions, our thought process, our well-being back on track. And what are some of the things that you all are personally doing in your own lives? We mentioned the gratitude journal. What are some ways that, whether it's disconnecting, how can I kickstart myself back on that path to being well for 2021?
So I would say, and this is not anything scientific, it's really down to the basics. Eating well, getting a lot of rest, exercising, right? I like to actually create vision boards, right? I don't feel like I have to just do it on January 1st. I can create them throughout the year because it helps me to remain focused and visualize, my goals and what I would like to achieve during the year. I love to write down my plans as well, because there's some type of research that says when you write down what your plans are, you're likely to stick to those plans and complete them. And then, like you said, just really, is that me? I'm sorry. And then again, one of the main things that I think that are very important is just doing the digital detox at least once or twice a month. And that's what I personally do.
Well, for me personally, like, I'm intentional about not starting my day with my phone. So like some people, they wake up and they run to their phone. I do not pick up my phone or look at my phone until I get to the office. So I wake up every day about 6 a.m. I get to the office around 7:30, 7:45. I won't, like, literally till I sit down, open my computer, log in, read through my emails, and then I introduce myself to my phone, because I think sometimes we bombard ourselves with all these sort of, when we get back to that social media piece, it can be just a lot. And so like I want to be in sort of a peaceful mindset, at least when I'm driving, because driving in Atlanta is already a nightmare. So I just cut down on one sort of issue, and so getting to work with a clearer headspace, essentially, and kind of clean slate. And also I do a lot of tasking. So for me, Kinyatta, you mentioned writing things down. For me, I like to write down all my goals for the day. Like, I want to get done. And it literally, when getting through that, checking off those boxes, like it instantly makes me feel better. And I mean, there's science that proves that. So like that helps me like stay on track. It also like helps me reward myself by reminding myself, like, I'm actually doing a good job. I'm actually getting through this. So making lists and setting goals for the day and just getting through that. And I think those are the biggest ones for me personally.
I think for me, I start my day off, and I agree with you, Anim. I believe how you start your day off really sets the tone. I start my morning off. I try to get up earlier than before everybody else, because I love the quiet and the peace in the house. And so I start off with prayer and reading a scripture. And sometimes that prayer, if I'm really, really tired, it's just, I'm thankful for another morning, another breath, another chance. And then I read a scripture, and then I do mindfulness meditation. And that really helps set the tone for my day. It really helps me to be in the moment, and it really helps me to manage my thoughts and my emotions that I have going throughout the day, because as we all know, our thoughts impact our behavior.
Yes.
So it really helps me to get in the right headspace. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm big on community. So especially during COVID, I spend time talking to girlfriends. At least one of my friends throughout the day, even my sister. If it's not a friend, it'll I'll talk to my sister, but I make sure, and it's not just texting. I will pick up the phone, which I know we don't really do much anymore, but I pick up the phone because sometimes I like to hear voices. Because I can tell if something's wrong in your voice. So I pick up the phone, we have a chat, we have a laugh. Sometimes it may be brief, 5 or 10 minutes, but I definitely make sure that I incorporate that, into my day to kind of help, me mitigate the day. Because I suffer from anxiety as well. So having people around me and setting the tone for my day, those things are really essential for me.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for joining us, and I want you to all individually go around and sign us out. Let us all know, first of all, if you have any last thoughts that you want to leave our audience with, and then also how they can connect with you further.
All right. So I again want to thank you, Camille, for being a gracious host and inviting me on this platform. I really think that this particular topic, dealing with grief and loss, divorce, and how to handle emotional trauma during the holidays, was so very needed. It was so very timely. And thank you for respecting my perspective and my experiences and inviting me on this platform. And so I would just like to leave you all with, one of my favorite expressions is, during the holidays, do not abandon their spirit. Take that time to visit your loved ones in spirit during the holidays. And again, I am Kinyatta Gray, and my website is kinyattagray.com. And I am also on Instagram at Kinyatta Gray, the author. And I want to thank you, Anim and Naima. It was such a pleasure to be on this platform with two very esteemed women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kinyatta.
I'll go next. So we had a brief pause there. So I just want to thank you, Camille, for inviting me to this space with these lovely and brilliant women. And if nothing else, it's highlighted that we are all sort of trying to get through the way we know how to, and that we all sort of, when you do feel alone, remember that you're not actually alone in your problems, that many of us are going through the same things. And that's the beauty in kind of having these spaces and talking about it and coming up front and sort of having real conversations like this. So thank you again. And if anybody's interested in connecting with me, again, visit my website, Anim Awe, ANIMAWEHLCSW.com, or I'm always on Instagram. Find me at Anim Awe, and also just join my self-love club. It's a movement. We're there. And so the wellness boxes too are coming soon. So I just want everybody to be well and heal in a sense in a way that makes sense for them. I don't think there's a one linear way for that. Healing comes in all different facets. So finding the way to your healing or your journey, and if I can help you in that, reach out to me.
Yes.
I love that, Anim. Yes, healing comes in different facets, and that's my passion as well, that we're all healed. Thank you, Camille, for allowing me to sit down with you all and chit chat. This has been a great discussion. I'm just honored to be amongst you all ladies, such brilliant and talented ladies with gifts. So I appreciate you all for making space for me. You can reach out to me, NijiamaSmalls.com, my first name, last name.com. Also, I'm on Instagram, Nijiama Smalls in real life. I have a group on Facebook as well. It's a safe space for women where we can share. It's called the Black Girl's Guide to Healing Emotional Wounds. Join us, join the discussion. But ladies, yes, as you just echoing what all the other women have said, we all have something that we're dealing with, right? I think it's so important that we make space for each other and that we exercise compassion towards each other and ourselves, because we're all at some point in the healing process from something. So keep healing, get the resources that you need to face this healing journey.
Thank you. And I do want to give you all a little feedback. Our guests are saying, good idea, great conversation. We're getting thank yous in our comments. So I just wanted to pour that back into you ladies, that we've had an amazing response tonight. And this will be up for life on Facebook and YouTube. So please take the link. I'll send it out to all of you and encourage people to replay it. All of you who are watching, please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, because it does not end here. I want to thank you guys all for joining us. And again, I'm going to put each one of your contact information in the descriptions on Facebook, YouTube, and on womenfortheculture.com. So thank you. And hopefully our audience will connect with you further. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, ladies.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.